All right, so we're going to start in Command. I've already set up my Docusign account through Command. If you have questions on that, let me know. We can talk about that after. But I really just want to jump into Command as quickly as, or excuse me, into Docusign as quickly as possible. So once I'm in Command, I'm going to go to my opportunities, which is the icon of the two hands shaking over on the left-hand side. And I'm going to click on all opportunities. You can click directly here into your pipelines, but I like to just click on all opportunities so I can see a list of them. And then here I have my opportunity that I'm going to work on this morning. We have Tony Stark. You can see I have all this set up. I also have added the property address right here in this top right-hand corner. And you can see this pencil. Anytime you see a pencil in Command, that lets you know that you can make an edit. I recommend adding as much information about your opportunity as possible, because Docusign will pull in most of that information, if not all of it, into Docusign. And I'll just kind of save you a couple minutes of having to fill in some of that information. So from here, I'm going to click on Documents. And you'll notice here, I don't have any checklists. When you create a new opportunity, over here on the left-hand side, there's a drop-down menu that says Pick Checklist Type. And I'm going to select Residential. And when I do that, now my checklist appears of all the documents that I will likely need for compliance review. One thing I do want to point out really quickly is that this morning I'm going to walk through a listing. It's going to be the same process as working with a buyer. However, because of the way that the seller's property disclosure, lead-based paint, and community association disclosure work, I want to talk through those because they're a little bit confusing. But everything else we do this morning is going to be the exact same process if you're working with a seller or a buyer. So once you've selected residential from the Pick Checklist Type dropdown, up in the top right-hand corner, we're going to see a button that says Start a Transaction. We are going to click Start a Transaction. It is very important that you click Start a Transaction. By clicking this button, you are alerting the system command to create a Docusign room that will be linked to this opportunity in Command. If you start a room directly in Docusign, which is A-OK, you will never be able to retroactively connect that room to the opportunity. Now, the main benefit of clicking Start a Transaction here is to have that connectivity between the two systems. So then when you go to upload your signed documents from Docusign, you can upload directly from Docusign into Command. Otherwise, you would have to download the documents from Docusign to your computer and then manually upload into Command. Again, not a huge, terrible thing to do, but it just kind of, can save you a couple minutes of your time. So once you're ready, click Start a Transaction. So I'm going to do that. And this is going to open up a new browser tab and have me log into Docusign Rooms. I've set my computer up to automatically save my login information. So here's my email that I used to create my Docusign account, my password, click Login. And now it's dropped me into the Documents tab of my Docusign room. Now I know that this is the correct room because up here in the top left-hand corner, it has the same name as my opportunity in Command. So Tony Stark -listing. It has 1234 Main Street, Atlanta, Georgia. There's the address that I included in Command. And then right below here, we have a room ID number. I want to point that out because there are some people that are a lot more proficient in Docusign and they like to email documents directly into their room. If that's something you want to be able to do, that's more of a Docusign 2.0 feature, but this is that ID, that room ID right there. When you create a Docusign room, it's going to immediately drop you into the Documents tab. Our first instinct is going to be like, oh, let's start creating and adding our documents and go ahead and getting those taken care of. But we want to pause that because before we do anything in the Documents tab, we want to fill out the details. However, for this morning's training, since this is we're acting as if this is the very first time we are in Docusign, before we even have access to any of that information, we need to confirm our NERDS ID number. This is the number that you get when you join the Atlanta Realtor Association and is your member ID for the National Realtor Association. By confirming this ID, you'll be granted access to the Georgia Association of Realtor contract forms. There are two ways to confirm your NERDS ID. I'm going to show you both ways, and then we'll pick right back up where we are now. The first way, and probably the most simple, since we're already here in the Documents tab of this room, I can click on Add up here in the top right-hand corner and select Docusign Forms. I'm going to have this pop-up window with a handful of logos, and I'm going to select the National Association of Realtors. I know it may seem counterintuitive, but versus Georgia Realtors, but select the National Association of Realtors. Now it's going to ask for my NERDS ID, which I don't know offhand, and I think I've only met one or two agents that actually do know it. But thankfully, there's a link right here under the box where it says Find Your NERDS ID. So I'm going to click on that. And now I can use my last name, email address, and/or license number to look up what my 9-digit NERDS ID is. So I'm going to click my last name and license number. This is just easiest for me. And I'll click Submit. And here is my NERDS ID. So I'm going to highlight this. And I'm going to copy it. And I'm just going to close this tab because I no longer need it. I'm going to paste my NERDS ID here. I'm going to type in my last name. One thing I want to point out with your last name, you must use the same last name that you used when you joined the Atlanta Realtors Association. So if you've been married, divorced, had any name change, you need to make sure that you've updated your name with the Atlanta Realtor Association or use the name that you had previously had when you created your account. The next is we're going to select the Georgia Association of Realtors from the dropdown. Thankfully, the list of realtor associations are now in alphabetical order, so I can just scroll down here to Georgia Association of Realtors and then click Validate. Now let's know that it's validated my association membership. It's checking my agreements. Now, if this is the very first time that you've confirmed your NERDS ID, you'll have a secondary pop-up window right here that asks you to accept the terms and conditions of the Georgia Association of Realtors, as well as all the GAR form usage. Click Accept, and then you'll get this screen here, which is a pop-up window with all of the GAR forms that you have access to. Any questions on what we've walked through so far of confirming our NERDS ID the first way? All right. The second way that we can confirm our NERDS ID is up here in the top right-hand corner where you see your initials or your picture. You can click on that and then select Preferences. And then over on the left-hand side, we have a menu. So I'm going to click on Integrations. And here you can, it shows that I'm a member of the National Association of Realtors. We can click Add Provider here. And it's going to be that same pop-up window that we just walked through in the Documents tab. And we'll go through the same steps of confirming your NERDS ID. The reason I like to point out this way as of confirming that you're a member of National Association of Realtors is in the event that something happens, your account gets messed up, you lose access to the forms, it's probably going to be most easy to come here to Preferences and Integrations to reconnect your association membership. So that is the second way you can confirm your NERDS ID. So now that we've gone through, we've connected our NERDS ID. Now let's go back into our room, pick up where we left off, and we can start updating that Details tab. So I'm going to click on Dashboard because I want to go back to my room that I just created. Oh, not the right one. Here we go. So I'm going to go back to where we were as if we had just clicked Start a Transaction in Command. It created my DocuSign room. It dropped me off here. As I mentioned earlier, my first instinct is to go, oh, let's start adding our documents. However, don't do that at first. What we want to do is we want to click on the Details tab. And the details tab is where we're going to fill out as much of the information that we know about this transaction as possible, because the information here on the details tab will auto-populate the forms that we add in the documents tab in just a moment. The information on the details page is broken up into two different sections. On the left 2/3 of the page, we have information that's going to be about the actual property. And then on the right-hand column, we have information that's going to be about the parties and the specific people involved in the transaction. It is important, like I said, to fill in as much information that you know about this transaction. You can always come back and edit and add information as you move along through a transaction, which is important, especially working with buyers, because when you start working with them and you get your buyer brokerage agreement signed, you don't yet, or likely don't yet, have a property under contract. So you can always come in later and update. To edit this information, we're going to click Edit up in the top right-hand corner. And we're going to start filling out the information on the left-hand side first, all the information about the property, and then we'll go to the right-hand column and fill in the property information about the participants. So up here, I have the ability to change the name of my room. It's going to default to the same name as my opportunity, so I'm just going to leave that as is. As always, fill in as much information as possible. So I'm going to select local currency, US dollars. I haven't created an MLS ID or MLS listing yet, so I don't have an ID because this is just me getting ready to send over that listing agreement. Scrolling down, we have our address. And this is the information that was pulled in from command. So again, just help save us a little bit of time filling in all the fields. Select property type. It is a residential detached. Year built, let's do 2005. Any special circumstances? No, there are not. All right, listing details. I'm just going to fill in the listing amount. So 375. We haven't yet decided on a listing date, so I'm just going to leave that blank. Scrolling down for offer details. We haven't yet gone live, so I don't have any offers, so I don't need to fill this in. I don't have a highest bid or closing details just yet. So I'm good with all the information on the left-hand side. Scrolling back up. Now I want to go through and double check the information about my seller. Now you'll notice the seller already has the information pulled in from command. So this again is helpful. At a minimum, on the details tab for your clients, whether it be a seller or a buyer, you need to have your client's legal name and their email address. The email address is required, so that way you actually have an email address to email the documents to for them to sign. Otherwise, Docusign is not going to be of much benefit. But you can see here, it pulled in the phone number from the listing, or excuse me, from the contact card. But again, just make sure they have their legal name and email address. Now, Tony obviously isn't a legal name. I would want Anthony or whatever's on his driver's license. But for today's example, we're just going to leave it as Tony. I'm going to scroll down. I don't need to include his address here because I'm not actually going to be mailing any of these documents to him. Continuing to scroll down, we have Pepper Potts. Here's her name and email address, which is just my personal. And scrolling down, here's my information as the listing agent. And again, this is all pulled in directly from command. Perfect. Listing agent 2. So if I were co-listing this with another agent, I can put his or her information in here. Now I want to keep on scrolling down because now we have buyer 1. So if you're working with a buyer, you're going to have to scroll pretty far down the page to put in your buyer's name and email address. You will not include, at that point, you would not include a seller name or because you're not working on a listing. Then scrolling down, we have buyer 2. So you put in your second buyer's name and then continuing to scroll down, buyer agent 1. So you put in your name here and buyer agent 2. So again, at a minimum, you need your client's legal name and email address and your name and email address as well. The reason this information is so important is for a couple of reasons. One, like I said, it's going to pre-populate all of the documents that we go, all the GAR forms that we add in just a moment in the Documents tab. However, more importantly, is when we go to send these documents for signature, we need to make sure that we have the contact information here, because that is what's going to give our clients permission to sign, initial, and fill out any fields that are required of them. If we do not include their name and email address on the Details tab, we will have to manually add every single signature field, initial field, and any other field on those documents, which will be take a lot of time. We don't want to do that. We are busy. We have to jump from one thing to another. So please be sure to add your clients' names and email addresses here on the Details tab. Any information or any questions on updating the information on the Details tab? All right, so we are good to go here. I'm going to click Save in the bottom right-hand corner. And now we are ready to start adding our GAR forms. So I'm going to come over to the Documents tab. And the Documents tab is where we are going to add all the documents that we are going to use throughout this transaction. So since today we're doing a listing, I'm going to need my listing agreement, my seller's property disclosure agreement, and my community association disclosure. And then I'm also going to add in the purchase and sale agreement, since that is going to be one of the most commonly used documents, whether you're working on a buyer or a seller. To add documents to your room, you're going to click Add up in the top right-hand corner, and then select Docusign Forms. And we have this pop-up window. Now over here on the left-hand side, we have two different menus. We have Groups and Libraries. Up here in the Groups are where I have gone through and grouped most of the forms that you are likely to use, either working with a buyer or a seller. So you can click on here and it's going to be a list of documents that you're probably going to use. I did this so it's just a little bit easier for you to go through and find the forms that you'll need, rather than having to search through 180 different GAR forms. This list in both the buyer's packet and seller's packet is not an exhaustive list, but it is the forms that you are going to most likely need. If for whatever reason the form that you need is not here in either the buyer's or seller's packet, you can scroll all the way down here into Libraries, into GAR, Georgia Association of Realtors, and this is going to show you all 180 GAR forms. You can search by the name, so I can search purchase and sale, and it's going to pull up every single purchase and sale document. Now, in addition to searching by name, you can also search by the form number. So you can see here, this top document is assignment of purchase and sale agreement, rights F279. The reason I point this out is because I've searched for purchase and sale, and I have, which is 15 different versions of a purchase and sale agreement. If I'm in a rush and I'm trying to fill out my offer, I'm at Starbucks, I just left the showing, things are kind of crazy, I need to get that offer in within the next hour because, whatever. It is very easy for me to select the incorrect form, and I've done it. But if you learn the form number, which you will, and it will take time, I can search F201, and that pulls up the correct purchase and sale agreement. So I can click Add. Now you'll notice here I have this special template drop-down menu. That is if you created a template that you want to autofill, you can use that here. But for today, I'm going to not do that. I also want to add in the seller's property disclosure. And again, I want to make sure I select the correct one. And we are going to select F301. And then I also want the community association disclosure. And then I want the exclusive seller listing agreement. Here we go, F101. Now I've selected 4 documents, and you can tell here because it says selected 4. I can click on it and it's going to show me the 4 documents that I have. So I'm going to click add selected. And now it's going to add those documents to my room. Whenever you add a document to a room, either from the list, the library of forms, or you have a signed document that comes back from a client, or you upload a document directly from your computer, it will default into this room docs folder, which is fine. So just know that anytime a document comes into your room, it's going to come into this room docs folder. However, some people like to organize their rooms a certain way so it's easier for them to find the forms that they need. If you want to create additional folders, up here in the top right-hand corner, we'll select Actions and then Add Folder. And so today I want to make a folder specifically for my listing agreement. I'm going to click Create. And now I have my listing agreement folder. So I want to take all the forms that I've added that have to do with my listing agreement and move them into this listing agreement folder. There are 2 ways that you can move documents between folders in a room. The first is if you roll your mouse over the document icon, you can select the checkbox in the top right-hand corner. And so you can select, all the documents that you want to include. Whenever you select a document, this toolbar will appear up here at the top of the screen. You can roll your mouse over the different icons to see what they are. I'm going to click on Move, select Destination, Folder in Current Room, and it's going to show me the list of folders that I have. I'll select Listing Agreement. I'm going to click Move. The page will reload, and now those 2 documents are going to be in my Listing Agreement folder. The second way to move documents is to roll your mouse over the document icon, click on it, hold your mouse down, and drag it into the desired folder. It's that simple. Any questions so far on adding documents, creating folders, moving documents to the folders before we start updating the documents? All right. So now we need to start updating these documents. We'll start with the exclusive seller listing agreement. So I'm going to click on that to open it up. All right. So here we have our GAR form, and we're going to start updating the information. Like everything, whether it's Command or Docusign, I recommend you start at the top and just work your way down, filling out the information. You can see here that the address, city, county, zip code has already been pre-populated. That's because the information that we added into the Details tab is going to pre-populate those corresponding fields on any and all GAR forms. So I'm here. I'm good to go here with the address. I need to get my tax ID, parcel ID. So I would just get that from the tax record. So I'm just going to type in a random number here. For legal description, we have a couple different options. Just select the option that works best. Number 1, attached as an exhibit here too is going to be preferred. If you need to get the legal description, you can reach out to any of our Alliance closing attorney partners, and they're happy to grab that and send it over to you. I think Campbell and Brandon sent it over to me within like 7 minutes. So super fast. If not, you can use the deed book and page number, which you can also find in the tax records. But just select whichever one you want. Scrolling down, we have our list price and list period. So we have a list price of $375. Our commencement date, we are going to do today's date. So what is that? Today is 2/18/22. And our ending agreement date, I like to do 6 months. So we'll do 8/28/22. One thing I want to point out with our training this morning is that this training is going to be all about how to use Docusign and how to fill in the information on the forms and how to send them for signature. This is not a training on what the correct information to put on the forms is. If you have questions on the specific information to make sure that it is correct and compliant, please reach out to Lynn or Lita or any of our closing attorney partners. Because I am not an attorney and I'm not a compliance broker, so I don't want to steer you in the wrong direction and get you in trouble. So I'm just going to go through here, fill out my information. So we have FMLS, Georgia MLS, and KWLS. Oh, another thing is that for this training, I will use abbreviations for things. But if I were actually sending this to the client, I would want to actually type out First Multiple Listing Service, Georgia Multiple Listing Service. Get the point. Marketing commencement date. So we are going to set this to go live on, let's do February 22nd, 2022. And we'll do this within 5 days of that date. I can scroll down. Commission, I have negotiated 6% with my seller, and I agree to share half of that, so 3% of the sales price with the co-op agent. No lease, so I'm just going to put an A, protected period. I like to negotiate 90 days. Agency brokerage, we do not offer dual agency or sub agency. And if the broker offers dual agency, the seller does not consent because we don't offer it, so we're not going to do it. Section 7, we do not have any special circumstances. Section 8, the seller does authorize the broker to assist in the extent requested by the seller in negotiating the terms of and filling out pre-printed forms. Continuing to scroll down. This is just an explanation of all the fields that we've just filled in. Just keep on scrolling. Keep on scrolling and scrolling. All right, now we get to section 10, brochures. So this is additional information that you can share with your clients just to educate them on what the process is going to be like and maybe some things that'll come up. So the ABCs of agency, lead-based paint, mold, protect yourself when selling a property. All these brochures are included in Docusign, and they are also in the buyer's brochure group when you go to add your forms. But you would need to add those individually to your room. Scrolling down, exhibits and addenda. So if you have a legal description exhibit, you can attach that, select that, and make it Exhibit A. Special stipulations. So if you have stipulations that you want to include, you can type those in here. You just click into the box. You can start typing any stipulation you would like. Add as many as you can here. If for whatever reason you have so many special stipulations that you need more space, you can use the additional stipulation page, which is form F246. But just be sure to check that here, so that way your client as well as Lynn or Lita know to check that additional page for compliant or for one of those steps. Scrolling down, now we get to the signature page. So you can see here it's auto-populated with our client's name and email address. Again, this is pre-populated from the details tab. And then scrolling down here, most of my information has been pre-populated from the details tab, but some of it is missing. So I'm going to go through and fill in all of the information. So I'm just going to tab through all these fields here. And I'm a member of the Atlanta board. Perfect. Now, one thing I do want to call out is that here for your client's information, if I were to delete my client's email here or delete any other field that was pre-populated, that would delete that information from the details tab. And thus, when I go to create my envelope to send these for signature, there would not be an email address associated with my client. So then I would not be able to send the document at all. So just be mindful, do not delete your client's email address or delete any other of the pre-populated information. So now I've gotten to the bottom of the document. Good to go. I'm going to click save and close. Any questions on filling in the listing agreement before we jump into the disclosures?
Nick, can you repeat that last part about not deleting anything that's pre-filled?
Yes. So all of the fields that are pre-populated based on the information that we've added on the details tab, any change that you make to that information on any GAR form is going to be linked back to the details tab. So if I delete my client's email address here off this field for whatever reason, it's going to delete that information out of the details tab. So then when I go to send my documents for signature, there is not going to be an email address associated with Tony here. So then I won't be able to send the documents at all. So I just recommend don't delete any of the pre-populated fields. If for whatever reason, I can show you later, if you're concerned about including your client's email address or contact information, I can show you how to hide it. But just know that you don't want to delete it because it will affect your signing capabilities later on.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so I'm going to click save and close. So that way all those changes have been saved. All right, the next document we want to fill out is our seller's property disclosure. So I'm going to click on that document here to open that up. All right, so you can see here our address information's already been added, so we're good to go, but we don't have an offer date yet, so we can leave that blank. And then I'll scroll down and you'll see I have all these areas for information to be filled in or boxes to be checked. However, I don't have the ability to fill in any of this information. That is correct. So as the listing agent, we do not have the ability to fill in any of the information on the disclosures. So for the sales property disclosure, community association disclosure, and lead-based paint disclosure, all of those fields and all that information must be filled in by your seller. So the system has all these fields mapped to seller number one. So I can just go through here and double check to make sure that there aren't any fields for me to fill in, but I know that there aren't, but I'm just going to give it a double check anyway. I like to point this out because it is very easy to open up this document and think, oh no, the document's not working properly, it's broken, whatever. But it is in fact set up correctly to protect you and prevent you from filling in any of the fields. So I'm just going to continue to scroll down. Again, no check boxes, nothing for me to fill in. And we have our my client's name, seller one, seller two, and I'm good to go. Any questions on the seller's property disclosure before we go into the community association disclosure? All right. So I'm going to click save and close. So there wasn't anything for me to fill in on that form, so that's perfect. Now, let's walk through the community association disclosure. So I'm going to click on that to open it up. All right, again, we don't have an offer date, so we can leave that blank, and it already pre-populates my address. I'm going to scroll down. And again, this is going to be the same setup as the seller's property disclosure, where I don't have any access to fill in or check any of the information on this form. This is set up solely for my seller to fill in. That is to protect me as the agent, because any information that is incorrect on these disclosures, I would be held responsible for if I were to fill it out, and I don't want that. So I'm just going to scroll through, double check everything. And it looks good to go. Client's names auto-filled, so I'll just click save and close. All right, the next form that we have is our purchase and sale agreement, which I understand is kind of out of the normal process if you're a listing agent. However, because it is going to be like the single most used document that you will use in your real estate career, I want to go through that just to familiarize yourself with it. And that way you kind of know all the information that goes in there. So I'm going to click on the purchase and sale agreement, open that up. All right. And I'm gonna start at the top, work my way down, filling in the information. Now, I understand that traditionally a listing agent isn't going to fill out a purchase and sale agreement. That's a-okay. We're just going to pretend that we are today. And we're going to fill out all the fields as needed. So we have our offer date. So I'm going to click on that. It's going to give me a calendar date of today. So I'm going to select today's date. It pre-populates my address, but I need my MLS ID. So I'll get that from FMLS. And then my tax parcel ID. We have our legal description. It's already pre-populated the deed book and page from my listing agreement. So I can just click check that here, or a check as exhibit as, attached as an exhibit here too. Our purchase price paid by the buyer. So we originally listed this at $375 and they are making an offer of $385. They are asking for $2,500 in seller's contribution to closing costs. The closing date shall be March 18th, 2022, with possession taken at closing. Closing firm is going to be Campbell and Brannon, and their phone number is 770. Oh, wrong field. They combined the closing firm name and phone number box, so I don't know why, but 770-123-4567. Holder of earnest money is going to be Keller Williams First Atlanta, and that will be paid by check, and that's going to be for $4,000 within 3 days of a binding date. So you can see it's really easy just to click through all the boxes and fill in the information. Scrolling down, we have our inspection and due diligence. So we are requesting 5 days of due diligence. Still want to be competitive in this market, but I want to make sure I'm looking out for my clients. And that way we have enough time to do an inspection or anything. Lead-based paint. This house was built in 2005, so we don't need to worry about lead-based paint. The seller's broker is Keller Williams First Atlanta, and I am representing this client as a seller. Excuse me, this seller as a client. The buyer's broker will just put Harry Norman, and they too are representing their buyer as a client. No material relationship, so I'll put NA there. And this has a time limit until 12 p.m. on tomorrow's date. So I'm going to continue to scroll down. Now it gets into the explanation of all the fields of everything we just filled in. So let's keep scrolling. Now we get to our exhibits and addenda. So we have our seller's property disclosure, so I can make that exhibit A. Then we have our community association disclosure, so I'm going to check that box and I can label that B. And then we'd want to include whatever financing contingency. So we have our all cash sale, our conventional loan, FHA loan, and then VA loan down here as well. Special stipulations. Now, I do not know why, whenever the Georgia Association of Realtors were putting this form together, why they made our special stipulation section literally an inch tall. However, if you have special stipulations, you can probably fit 1 or 2 here, but you'll likely need to use the additional stipulations page F246. So be sure to check that, and you will need to add that form to this to the room. Just as an FYI, I would recommend if you have an additional stipulations page, when you send your offer over to a listing agent, maybe go ahead and include those stipulations in the email, or call out that there is an additional stipulations page at the end of the purchase and sale document. You just want to make sure everyone is aware of all the things included in your offer. So that is our additional special stipulations. Again, same process. You just click in here and you can start typing your stip. All right. Scrolling down, we get to our signature page. Again, it pre-populates our client's name and email address. Now, I mentioned this earlier that do not delete your client's email address. I know a lot of agents, myself included, are hesitant to share my client's contact information with a co-op agent. I'm sure that 9 times out of 10, that co-op agent is going to be very respectful of the relationship that I have with my clients. However, there are some shady characters out there, and they may try to reach out to my clients directly and negotiate a deal that cuts me out, save them commission, whatever. Again, do not delete your client's email address here. I will show you in a few minutes when we go to send this document for signature, how we can actually black out the email address to protect our client's contact information. So scrolling down, double check all of my information. It is pre-populated from the listing agreement form. I just need to add that I'm a member of the Atlanta Realtor Association. If you wanted to, you can go through and fill in the co-op agent's information. You can get his or her license information, all that from FMLS. But today, I'm not going to fill it in. Once I'm good, I'll come down here and click Save and Close. Any questions about filling out the purchase and sale agreement or any of the forms before we go to send them for signature? All right, so I'm gonna click Save and Close. Give that a second to save. All right, so once we've gone through, we've created all of our documents, added all the information that we needed. Our next step is to send them for signature. The way that you send documents in Docusign for signature is through an envelope. And the way that Michael New explained envelopes to me, and I thought it was really great, so I like to share the story, is he said, think of an envelope in Docusign just like you would think of a manila envelope in real life. And you had gone through, you printed out copies of all of these GAR forms, you filled them in by hand, and you organize them and put them in that manila envelope on the corner of your desk until you went to go see your client. You then took that manila envelope and handed it to your client and said, please review and sign these documents. An envelope in Docusign is that same thing. It is a way to organize the documents and send them for review and signature. To create an envelope, there are 2 ways that you can do that. The first is when you are in the Documents tab, you can check whichever documents you would like to be included in that envelope. So I've selected these 3 listing agreement documents. Whenever you select a document, this toolbar will appear. You can roll your mouse over the different icons to see what they are. And then you can select the Create Envelope icon, which is a picture of a pen for signing. And that will create an envelope with these documents already loaded into it. So that's option number 1. Since I only have 4 documents here, I'm really not that stressed. I can go ahead and I can just manually create an envelope. But I do like to point this out because as you go through a transaction and you're going to have a ton of documents in your room, it sometimes can be easier just to select the 1 or 2 documents you want to send and then create an envelope that way versus the next step or the manual way that I'm going to walk through in just a moment. So that's option number 1 for creating an envelope. The next option is to go to envelopes. And up in the top right-hand corner, I'm going to select new. And now I'm going to create my envelope. And again, with everything, let's start at the top and we'll work our way down, filling in all the information and adding it as we have it. So envelope name, it's going to default to please Docusign, but please update this to something relevant. So this is going to be 1234 Main Street, exclusive federal listing agreement and purchase and sale. Throughout a transaction, you will send maybe 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 envelopes, maybe more. You will at times need to go back and reference them to double check and say, oh, hey, I sent the envelope to you on this date, you signed it on that date, whatever. So be sure to actually name your envelope something that you can go back and easily understand and reference. Because if you leave them all as please Docusign, it's going to be really overwhelming. Things are going to get chaotic. And I promise someone's going to have a question and you're going to have to spend way too much time hunting down that answer. So now that we have our envelope name, oh, I do want to point out that the envelope name is for internal purposes only. It's your clients aren't going to see it. So for here, you can use abbreviations, but again, just be mindful. Don't put anything that could be offensive or silly in the envelope name. The next is add documents to the envelope. So here's where we're going to select which documents we want to send for review and signature. We have 3 different buttons here for how we can add the documents. The first one is Room Docs, which is blue, which is going to be the most common place to get our documents. So I'm going to select Room Docs, and it's going to pull up this tab, or this window, excuse me, with all of the documents in my room. So here are the 4 documents. A new feature that Docusign has updated has added to show the different folders. So this is helpful. So I can click on the listing agreement folder, and it's going to show me the 3 documents that I have in my listing agreement folder. Perfect. And then I can click back on all folders, and then I can click on Room Docs folder, and I can select the purchase and sale. And now I've selected all 4 documents. I can see up here that I've selected 4, and it shows me the number right there. And I'm going to click Add Selected. And now it's going to load those documents into my envelope. The next thing we want to do is when you send over your listing agreement or buyer brokerage agreement, you need to also include the Rawls Group affiliated marketing and wire fraud disclosures. At First Atlanta, we have set those up as templates because there aren't any fields for you to fill in or update or anything. It really is just sending them for signature. So to add those to your envelope, you'll click on the Use a Template form, or excuse me, Use a Template button. And then we're going to select Shared with Me on the left-hand side. And this is going to pull up all of the Docusign forms that the MCA office has shared with you. Just give it a second to load. It always takes a minute. It will load, I promise. One day. There we go. Perfect. So here we have about 30 documents. You can scroll down. Here you'll see we have a buyer-affiliated marketing disclosure and buyer-wire fraud disclosure. I'm going to scroll down some more. And then I have a seller-affiliated marketing and a seller-wire fraud disclosure. Those forms are actually the exact same. However, depending on which side of the transaction you're working, you want to send that corresponding version of the document. So today I'm working with the sellers. So I want to select the seller wire fraud and seller affiliated marketing. And the only difference is going to be the signing rights and who is mapped to sign on which document. So since I'm working with a seller, I need to make sure I include the seller version here because all the fields are going to be mapped to that seller 1 and seller 2 role that we had included on the details tab. So I'm going to click Add Selected. And now it's going to add those 2 templates to my envelope. Perfect. And the last button here that we have is More. And this allows us to upload a document directly from our computer or add one from Dropbox or Box or Google Drive. You would upload a document maybe if you'd receive something from a co-op agent, like a disclosure, or if you wanted to go ahead and accept an offer, you can upload that here and just add the fields for your clients to sign. But I do want to point that out that you can upload documents here. Now this morning we are sending over our listing agreement with a purchase and sale agreement. So I want my clients to review these documents in a specific order. It is at this part of creating an envelope that you must put these documents in the order that you want them to be reviewed and signed. For whatever reason, if you were to click next and then come back and reorder them, it would just put them in alphabetical order again. It's kind of silly. So just make sure that you do it here the first time. So I want to start off with my seller's listing agreement. So I'm going to roll my mouse over that document icon, hold my mouse down and drag it into the desired position. After that, I want the seller's property disclosure. So I'm going to move that into the second position. And then I want my community association disclosure. Then I want my purchase and sale agreement to be last. So I'm just going to drag that into the 6th position there. And then affiliated marketing and wire fraud. Perfect. So now I have my documents in the correct order. Any questions on adding documents from the room or a template or putting them in a desired order? before we go on to our next step? All right. So continuing to scroll down, now we're going to add recipients to the envelope. To do that, we have this nice little button here that says add recipient and a little drop down, and we have three options: pre-tagged roles, room participants, and email addresses. Anytime that you see, well, let me rewind. What I'm about to say is probably going to be one of the most important things that I say today on this training. And it is probably 90% of the issues that agents have when working with Docusign is prevented right here. Anytime that you see pre-tagged roles as an option, 100% of the time, select pre-tagged roles. All of the GAR forms that are in Docusign are mapped to have all their signature fields, initial fields, and empty blank fields assigned to either a specific seller or buyer. If you select room participants, you will have to go through and manually add every single signature field and initial field, which is going to take way too much time and you're too busy for that. So please be sure to 100% select pre-tagged roles. In the event that you want to send this document either for signature or just review by someone that is not included on the details tab, whether it be maybe a closing attorney or a lender, you can select email address and then you can just type in their name and email address and send it off. But today we're going to select pre-tagged roles because my sellers have a lot of fields that they need to sign and fill in. So I'm going to select pre-tagged roles, and it's going to give me this pop-up window with all the roles included in all the forms that I have included. So I'm going to select seller 1, seller 2, and listing agent. So for seller 1, I'm going to come to the drop-down menu and I'm going to select Tony Stark as seller 1. Seller 2, I'm going to select Pepper Potts. And then as listing agent, I'm going to select myself. Now you may be in here twice. It doesn't matter. Just select whichever one. Now, one thing I want to point out here is when you are selecting whoever is going to be listed as seller 1, make sure you confirm this with your clients, because seller 1 is going to be the party that is responsible for filling in all of the information on the disclosures. So if Pepper's like, actually, hey, I would like to be the one to fill that information in, make sure we assign Pepper as seller 1. So just have that conversation with your clients. Hey, I'm getting ready to send over some disclosures for you to review and fill in. Who would, of the two of you, who would like to be responsible for filling in all the information on those disclosures? Once you got confirmation, you're good to go. So I'm going to click Add Selected. Another thing I want to point out before we move forward is that we do have the ability to add our buyer's agent or buyers to the envelope. However, I recommend never, ever, 0% of the time, ever sending documents to a co-op agent for signature in Docusign. I'll repeat that. Never, ever send documents to a co-op agent for signature through Docusign. Always send them just to your clients for signature, and then you can download a PDF to send them. The way that the Docusign system works is that every single party that is assigned to that document has to sign it before it is considered complete. Docusign does not include half-signed documents as complete. So I can't send it over, to my seller 1 and seller 2, and then just because the buyer's agent didn't sign, I don't have a copy of that document with my client's signature on it. The system is going to say, hey, this document isn't complete, so you don't have it at all. So never ever send to a co-op agent, because the likelihood is you're probably going to be negotiating on at least one piece of information on those forms, and that co-op agent isn't going to sign it until everyone's come to an agreement. So please do not send documents for signatures to co-op agents in Docusign. So I'm going to click Add Selected. And we'll give it a second to load. Perfect. So now it has added all three recipients. There's a fair amount of information here that was just added. So we're going to walk through it from left to right. So the left To the left of each one of the recipient boxes is a little box with the number 1 in it. That box denotes the signing order of this envelope. The system is going to default everyone to signer number 1, which means everybody has the ability to sign at the same exact time. However, there are going to be times when having someone sign first and then second and then third is ideal. So for today's example, since Tony is going to be the one filling in the disclosure information, I want to leave him as signer 1. But then I want Pepper to be signer 2, because Pepper wants to go through and she wants to review all of the information that Tony includes to make sure that it's correct. And then once Pepper signs off and everything's good to go, I want to be the final signer because I have the ability to make my listing agreement binding when I go to sign. So now I've put them in the correct signing order. You just do that by highlighting the number and typing it in, and then automatically we'll put it in that correct signing order. Here we have our client's name and email address. So this is how it's going to appear on our forms. I don't need to make any changes here. Everything's good to go. To the right of that, we have a drop-down menu that's going to default to needs to sign. There's a couple different options of permission. The system will default to needs to sign. If someone needs to view it, so let's say I need to send, say you're working with a client and their parents are involved in the transaction and they're like, hey, I'm happy to help with a gift for your down payment, but I want to view every single form that the realtor sends over before you sign it. Well, you could set their permission as needs to view, which means that they will actually have to click into the document, review it, and click finished before the next person will be able to go through and sign or it to be considered complete. If you want someone to receive a copy, this may be, let's say after everyone is done signing, you can include your lender or your closing attorney, and that way the system will automatically send them a copy of the completed form. Recipient, specify recipient, probably aren't ever going to use this. Witness for signer, so if you need to include a witness for someone, you'd include that there. I will say needs to sign and receives a copy are going to be the most commonly used permissions here. To the right of that, we have a drop-down menu with more. We have 2 options here. One, add access authentication, and the second is add private message. The add access authentication is if we want to add another layer of security to signing for these forms. So if you may have clients that are really uncertain about electronically signing forms, and they're afraid that someone's going to break into their email address and start signing GAR forms on their behalf, and somehow they're going to be under contract for a house they had no clue about. We can click add access authentication, and it gives us the ability to type in a little code on these forms. This is going to be a password protected code that someone will have to type in before Docusign will allow them to start signing. So I can say, hey, Tony, I understand you're concerned about e-signing. No worries. I've added a special code. So you'll need to type in 12345 into the system before you're able to start signing. And this is to prevent anyone from hacking your email and start buying houses on your behalf. I don't actually want to include that because it's kind of more of a nuisance. So I'm going to click discard. And then our other option is to add a private message. So if you want to write a message to one individual, you can type private message here. So I'm going to write, hi, Tony. Please be sure to fill in all of the fields on the seller's property disclosure and community association disclosure. Thank you. Nick. Now, because Tony's designated seller 1, he's the one responsible for those forms. And I just wanted to send a quick reminder to just him to fill in the fields because Pepper won't be able to do that. So this is my nice little private message that's going to go directly to Tony. Any questions on adding recipients, putting recipients in a specific signing order, and or updating their permissions? All right. So we're going to continue on, scroll down. Our last item for the envelope creator is here's the email subject and email message. The email subject is going to default to please DocuSign. I recommend that you leave that in the email signature, just so your clients are aware that there is an action that they need to take. They need to DocuSign. But I would include the property address and the name of the forms that they are signing. At this point, I would have already talked and say, hey, Tony and Pepper, I'm getting ready to send over the listing agreement and the purchase and sale documents. Check your inbox and I'll send you a text when I have sent those out for signature. So they're on the lookout for it. They recognize DocuSign, good to go. And then I'll just type a quick message here. Hi, Tony and Pepper. Please review and e-sign. Thank you. I mean, that's a bit short, but you get the idea. Just a little message there. Once we've added our message, our next step is to click next. So I'm going to click next up in the top right-hand corner, and that is going to take me to the envelope editor. And this is where we're going to go through and double check to make sure that all the signature fields are assigned correctly. Make sure that we didn't miss adding or filling in any information in the Documents tab, and double check everything else. So there's a lot of information in this view here. So we're going to talk through the layout. Up here in the top left-hand corner is this nice little back arrow. In the event that you need to go back out of the envelope editor, you can click go back here, and then you can go back into the Documents tab or do whatever it is you do, whatever you need to do. The system automatically saves your updates about like every 5 seconds. So more than likely the work that you have done will not get deleted unless you go back and you edit. If you have a bunch of manual changes to the signature fields here in the envelope editor, and then you go back to the Documents tab, make a change there, it will wipe out all those edits. But since we selected pre-tagged roles, we shouldn't have to worry because all those fields and signatures are already mapped. Below that, we have where it says Tony Stark, and it shows a little yellow dot, and that's a drop-down menu. And then below here, you'll see we have all of our standard fields, and they're all highlighted yellow. Below, if I click on this drop-down menu and I select Pepper, she has a blue color. Now all of these fields are blue. And the same thing for myself, I'm purple. Now the color designation doesn't matter, but having the different colors assigned to each person is going to make it much easier for you to visually ID who was responsible for which fields when double checking all the documents here. So I can click up here, Tony Stark. I know everything that's going to be yellow is his. If I need to add anything that's going to be assigned to Tony, I want to make sure I select his name from the dropdown and make sure that that color associated with that standard field is yellow. In the middle here is going to be a preview of the forms, and you can just scroll through that. We can't make any edits to any of the fields as we could in the Documents tab. This really is just a last double check and really double checking all the document or all the signatures. And then over on the right hand side, we have thumbnails of all the documents. You can see here I can minimize this to look at each one of the GAR forms, and it is in the correct order that I assigned previously on the envelope creator page. And then you can scroll through the different thumbnails. And then when you get to a page that has any type of signature or field assigned to it, it's going to have this nice little tab up in the top left-hand corner. So I can visually see, perfect, all three parties have an assigned field on this page. So I can click on it, and it's going to show me here's a signature field for Tony, Pepper, date signed, and then one for myself as well. So that's how you can go through and double check all this information. Now that we kind of have the layout of the envelope editor, we can go through and double check it. Now for the listing agreement, we only have signature fields on this page. Now remember, I set myself up to be the third and final signer, and that is so I can make this listing agreement binding when I sign. So to do that, I need to add some text fields right here. So I'm going to select my name from the drop-down menu, and I'm going to select text. So I'm just going to click on it once and then drag that over here, and I'm just going to format it to fit. So I'm just going to leave that there. So now I have a text box that is assigned to me. So when I go to sign, it's going to have me fill in information here. One thing that I love about DocuSign is that rather than having to come back over here, add a text box, reformat, is I can just right mouse click, copy, let's do copy, paste, and I can just paste that same size formatted text box right here. This kind of saves me a little bit of time. And then we have our date field here, which we have this handy dandy date signed field. So I can just click on that and add that here, and the system will automatically add the date and time that this is signed, or when I sign it. So now I'll be able to make this binding, which is beneficial because it'll just kind of save me a little bit of work later on when having to send this out for signature or updating it later on. So I'm going to continue to scroll down. Our next document is going to be our seller's property disclosure. Scrolling down, you can see all these fields are outlined in yellow. So we have this field here and all these buttons outlined in yellow. Whenever you click on that field, over in the top right-hand side, we have a menu. You can see we have required and read only. By this field not being filled in yellow and only outlined in yellow, lets me know that this is not a required field. So what that means is that when Tony goes through this to sign, it's going to jump from required field to required field to required field, which will just likely be signature, signature, signature. However, Tony is responsible for filling in all the information on the seller's property disclosure. He probably just doesn't realize it because the system doesn't recognize this information as required. So one little trick that you can use when sending a seller's property disclosure or community association disclosure or lead-based paint or anything, I can select one field that I know is going to be filled in. So what year was the main residential dwelling constructed? I'm going to select that, and then I'm going to select required from that menu on the right-hand side. And now this field is filled in yellow. So now it's going to stop Tony and say, hey, you have to fill in this field here. And then he's going to see, oh, wow, I have all these other fields that I need to check and fill in to make sure that all this information is complete. Now, I don't want to go through and make every single field and checkbox required because I don't know which fields are relevant and which ones are not relevant for Tony and his property. But by just selecting the first one, it's enough for the system to stop Tony and he can fill in this field and then scroll down to the bottom and continue to fill out. So I'm just going to scroll through, just double check that everything is outlined in yellow so I know that Tony will have the ability to fill it in. All right, scroll down here. We have Tony's signature and date and Pepper's name, signature and date. We're going to scroll down to the community association disclosure. And this is going to be the same thing as the seller's property disclosure. Everything's going to be assigned to Tony, but nothing's going to be required. Well, since I know that Tony has an HOA, I just don't know any information about it. I don't know what type of membership it is, but I do know that he has one. So I know that this field here for name of association is going to be required. So I'm going to click required field. And again, the system will stop him here to fill in the name of association. And it's going to be much easier for him to then fill in the rest of the information. So again, just going to scroll through, double check, make sure everything is properly assigned to Tony and make sure that I didn't miss anything. And there we have their signature fields, good to go. The next is our affiliated marketing disclosure. Perfect. So we have signature and date signed for both Tony and Pepper. And then we have our wire fraud prevention. Again, signature, name, and date signed, good to go. And then our last document here is our purchase and sale agreement. So we can just go through, double check, and make sure everything is correct. You can see here that the seller initials are at the bottom of page 1. We're just going to scroll through, keep scrolling, make sure there aren't any other fields that I'm missing. Perfect. So now we're here at the signature page. And this is what I told you earlier. We don't ever want to delete our client's email address off of a GAR form. But if you are uncomfortable with the idea of sending your client's contact information to a co-op agent, don't worry. Here's where we can add a black box to hide and protect our client's contact information. To do that, over here in the far left-hand side, I'm going to click on this pencil icon that says pre-fill tools. And then I'm going to select line. And I'm just going to come over here and I'm going to drag the line across my client's email address. Then once I'm done with that line, the menu will appear in the right-hand side. I'm going to select color. I'm just going to pick color and I'm going to select black. Done. And then thickness, I'm just going to make this all the way thick. So, and then I can just kind of drag it to cover up my client's email address. Now, while a black box is not the most beautiful thing to see on a purchase and sale agreement, it does its job of hiding our client's email address. I want to do this again for my second seller. So I'm going to right mouse click on this black box. Oop. Well, I guess it's not letting me right mouse click on it, but what I can do is I can click on it, hit copy, paste on my keyboard, and just drag that into the position that I want. Oop. And now both of my sellers' contact information is hidden from that co-op agent. Scroll down, just double check, make sure all my information is good to go. And here we go. Any questions on going through, double checking the envelope editor, making any of the fields required, adding any additional signature fields or anything before we go on to sending this for signature?
One quick question.
Yep.
So you would black that out, the email address for them to initially sign it just right off the bat. That way, when you have to send it over later on, it's gone. So you black that out to begin with.
Yes, because if I'm running a purchase, an offer, as soon as I receive that signed PDF from my clients, I'm just going to go ahead and send it straight over. I don't want to have to go back into Docusign, create another envelope, black out the field. And if they have questions about it, I'll let them know. I do it to protect their contact information.
That's a great tip. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. So our next step is going to be to send this for signature. But if you want to double check everything or triple check everything, you can click on Recipient Preview up here in the top right-hand corner. And this is going to show you a preview of what it's going to be like for your clients to view and sign this document. So there's a drop-down menu up here where you can see what it's like for each one of your signers. So now I've changed it to Tony. So this is going to be what Tony experiences. Up here in the top middle, we can see what it's like to, what it'll be like for Tony to sign on a desktop, on a tablet, and on a phone. Now, if you're working with clients and they're like, hey, we really want to get this offer in, we're super excited about the house, but we have dinner reservations at this restaurant we've been trying to go to for the last 15 months. We cannot miss our reservations. Tony and Pepper, go to dinner, have fun. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write up the offer. I'm going to give you a call when that offer is in your inbox. So while you're sitting enjoying appetizers, you can go on your phone and sign it, click, 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 and we'll be good to go. So you don't have to miss your dinner and we can still get our offer in. However, just know that it's going to be really hard to read on your phone. It's really small. It's a lot of information condensed on a tiny little space. So you can just click start here and it's going to jump through, the process of what it'd be like for Tony to sign. Once you're triple checked it here, you can click the X up in the top right-hand corner. And then it'll exit the recipient preview. And now I'm going to click send. So it is sending this document out for signature. Perfect. It lets me know here in the envelopes that this is waiting on others. So it's sent to Tony first. So I'm going to pull up my email and we're going to go through as if we are Tony. So let me just go out here and then we're going to go to gmail.com. And I'm going to come over here. Let me open up this inbox. Perfect. So you can see here, please DocuSign 1234 Main Street. It says from Nicholas Core via DocuSign. I'm going to click on that email. I'm going to scroll down. Here's my private message directly to Tony. Tony, please be sure to fill in all the fields on the SPD and CAD. Tony's going to click on Review Documents. right? He's going to click agree to use electronic records and signatures, continue, click start, sign. It's going to ask him to confirm his signature. If he wanted to, he can upload or draw his own signature. It's not that big of a deal. He can click adopt and sign. And see how it's jumping from required field to required field. And it stopped here on the year, what year was the main dwelling constructed. So I'm going to type in 2005. And then I can just go through and check all this information. If Tony wanted to add info here, more info, and he can just easily go through and check. I'm just going through here and just checking things as quickly as possible, just because I'm going to show you what it looks like when Pepper goes to sign in just a minute. All right, so I'm gonna skip all these pages here, and then we'll come to this last one, and we'll just check a bunch of these. So we can see that by making that first box required, it makes it a lot easier for Tony to go through and fill in the information. Now he can sign. It's going to jump to the community association disclosure. And again, it's going to stop him here, name of HOA. He can select which type of community association. Let's do. They can type in. I'm just typing in gibberish for time. No special assessments. Of association, so assessment. So this will be $1,000 is the HOA and is paid quarterly. 0. Again, I'm not sure if this is correct, but I'm just trying to fill in forms here. Utility expenses. This includes property costs, pest control, termite, pool, flood insurance, termite, trash pickup. There's no litigation. And Tony can sign, initial, sign. And you can see there's the black box protecting my client's email. So once Tony is complete here, he can click finish. Give it a second to wrap up and save. It's going to ask your client if they want to create an account. They don't need to, so they can click no thanks. And then you need to make sure your clients get the you've finished signing page. It is very important that they get this you finished signing. That is to confirm that there's no more required fields for them and the next person can sign. So now Pepper will have the ability to sign. So I'm going to close this tab. I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to open up my personal email, which is what we use for Pepper. And here we have our Nicholas Corvia Docusign. And then here's my message to Tony and Pepper. Now remember, I don't have a private message for Pepper, so it doesn't show up here. I'm going to click review documents. And now we're going to go through the process as Pepper. So she'll agree to use electronic records and signatures, continue, start, sign, adopt and sign. Now it jumped all the way to the very end of that seller's property disclosure because there weren't any fields for Pepper to fill in. But I'm going to scroll up so I can show you that all of the fields that Tony filled in appear when Pepper signs. And that's important because it does give Pepper the ability to double check any of the information that Tony filled in, because both sellers will be held responsible for any misinformation included. So you can see here, perfect. Continue scrolling. Here's all the things that are going to remain with the home. Pepper can sign. Again, same thing with the community association disclosure. It just jumps right past all that required, all the required fields for Tony and just go straight to the signature, sign, sign, initial, sign. So now Pepper is done. So I'm going to click finish. It's going to ask her if she wants to create an account. We'll say no thanks. Now you've finished signing. So now Pepper is completely done signing. So now the third and final signer, me as the listing agent, can jump in and sign. So I'm going to click into, let me go back over here. Let me go into my work email. So you can see here, I got a bunch of emails letting me know that Tony's viewed, Pepper's viewed, and now it's my turn to sign. So I'm going to click into my Please Docusign, 1234 Main Street, and I'm going to click Review Documents. Continue. Start. I'm going to sign. Now remember, I get to make this binding, so the system is stopping me to make this add my time. So I'm going to make this at 12 p.m. And this automatically adds in the date here of today's date, and then finish, sign, and now I'm all finished. So I click finish. I do not want to log in. No, thank you. You finished signing. So now all three parties have finished signing. What I want to do now is I'm going to come back into Tony's room here. Actually, it's this one right here. So this is Tony's email. And you'll see Tony's received an email that says completed, please DocuSign 1234 Main Street, listing agreement and purchase and sale. So I'm going to open that. And I'm going to scroll to the bottom. And DocuSign has sent out signed PDF versions of all the documents that were just signed. This is very beneficial because in the state of Georgia, we are required to give our clients copies of all the documents they sign. This just saves us that saves us that extra step. So we don't have to do it, and it's already in their inbox. They don't need to do anything with it, but they just have it for reference. It also is really helpful for us because if we're out and about on the go, it just saves us from having to log back into DocuSign to download forms, to then email. I can just easily download here from Gmail and send it. So I can click into my email as well, and I receive that same email. So here's my personal or my work email, same email with all of the documents right there. What questions do you have about sending the documents out for signature or having your client sign before we jump into uploading into Command?
You did a great job walking through that step by step. I think we're good.
Thank you. All right, well, perfect. So I'm going to click back into DocuSign really quick. I'm going to click refresh on the envelopes page so it shows that this is completed. I can click on this envelope and it's going to give me the details of when everyone signed. So in case there's ever any confusion, you can come back here and say, oh, look, you signed at 11:21, Tony. I don't know how you missed it. You can view the documents, which you don't need to do here. And then you can just click the little X in the top right-hand corner. I'm going to go over to the Documents tab. I'm going to show you now we have signed copies of all of these documents. So I'm going to scroll down here and you can see I have all these documents that have this green checkbox in the bottom. It says signed. These are all the signed copies of those documents. Now you'll notice all of those documents are in the Room Docs folder. That's because anytime a new document is added into the room, whether it be an upload, we add from the GAR forms, or we have a signed document, it just defaults here. But I want to arrange them back into all my listing agreements into one folder, seller's property disclosure and wire fraud, and then my purchase and sale in another. So I selected my listing agreement documents. I'm going to click move, select destination, folder and current room, listing agreement, and move. The page will reload. And now all of those documents are in their corresponding folders. I do want to point out really quickly, this document here, the certification document, this is just a sheet that shows the signature and timestamp of everything. You don't actually need it. Again, just verification that everyone did sign if there is ever any confusion. So now that we have all of our documents in Docusign, our last step is to go into Command and upload those for compliance review. So I'm going to go into Command, just click back into my opportunity. I'm here in my opportunity in my Documents tab, and now let's upload. Here, up here in this gray toolbar, it says Attach Files From, and we have two options, Computer, Manual, or Docusign. If for whatever reason you have anything to upload from your computer, you'll want to click on the computer, and then that changes the upload portion right here. But today we're going to use Docusign. And it says Working Folder, so I'm going to select Listing Agreement because this is my listing folder. So I'm going to select Listing Agreement, and I'll go through here, and it's going to pull up all of my signed documents, and I'm going to come look for the correct one. So here's my listing agreement, and then automatically attaches that from Docusign. Same thing with my community association disclosure, my seller's property disclosure. And then one thing you'll notice, and this is a new feature, is that as I've added documents to previous forms, it takes those out of my ability to add them to another document. So in here, it just makes it super easy. There's my wire fraud or my affiliated marketing. And then here's my wire fraud right there. Perfect. Once you have all of these forms and they're ready to go, then you click Submit to MC. Now this button is highlighted because I have actual documents to send. When you click Submit to MC, that is going to send these documents to Lynn and Alita for compliance review. They're going to let you know if the documents are good to go or any edits are needed. You'll get a notification up here in this, the notification bell, and the status up here will be changed to reviewed, approved, and if there's a little, if it says not approved, there'll be a little box with 3 dots in it right here, and that'll be a quick message saying, please add signature to this portion or update this information here, and then re-upload. In the event that you have to re-upload, you can click on the 3 dots here, and it'll give you the option to replace. So that is our training this morning. We've gone through a lot. We started in Command. We've selected that we're using a residential property list. We've started a transaction to create that room that is connected to our opportunity. We've confirmed our NERDS ID, updated our details tab, added documents, filled them out, sent our envelope, signed them, and now upload them into Command. What questions do you have? What can I show you again? Anything I can clarify for you this morning?
That was great.
Good. This is a lot of information. So as you are working in Docusign, please don't hesitate to reach out with any questions. You can call me, text me, or we can set up some one-on-one time depending on how in-depth a problem or question you have. All right. Well, you guys, thank you for joining me this morning. Have a wonderful rest of your Friday. Have a great weekend, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you,
Good
Nick.
man, Nick.
Thank you. Bye.